Look Outreach is underwritten by the generous support of Munter Enterprises. Family owned and operated since 1972, integrity is important, as our family name is on every project. Our word is our bond. Munter Enterprises. Just build it.
Welcome back, everyone. Special guest today. Welcome back. Welcome home.
I'm excited to be home, Jesse.
That's great. This is Elise Stefanik. In case you don't know, we've been living under a rock. This is our Congresswoman, 21st District, big district, by the way. So welcome home. How are you? How are your walking shoes?
They're good. I have a busy day today. I'm visiting the Naval Nuclear Facility, Kesselring, in West Milton, and then I'm going to the Saratoga County Fair to hear from some of my agricultural folks that I represent.
Oh, you know what? You're always so busy when you come home. It's supposed to be a little bit of rest, too, and a little bit of vacation, but I don't think you do that. By the way, when you're over at the Saratoga Fair, be careful of the axe women.
Okay.
We just did a story on them.
Okay.
You don't want to be around women throwing axes. I'm telling you, I don't know, maybe it's just me. I don't know. Hey, we've got a lot to talk about. We're probably going to break it into 2 interviews. But you've accomplished a lot in the first 6 months. And your representatives in Washington sent me some of the things. And when I was reading through it, it was very impressive. And I think we'll just start with maybe constituent services, right? What does that actually mean? And what's going on in our district?
So constituent services is one of the most important things that a member of Congress should focus on. It's something that I ran on, providing answers that regular constituents, average individuals have about how they work through their federal government. We have the highest number of veterans in this district out of any other congressional district in New York State.
That's right.
So that's significant. On a weekly basis, we hear from veterans who have their VA claims backed up in the federal bureaucracy. So I'm so proud that my office, because of my great staff work and our focus on serving our veterans, that we've been able to claim over $2 million of VA benefits. Some of these are claims that have been going on for over a decade. They've been trying to work through the bureaucracy. So it's important for your viewers to know, if they have an issue with the VA, if they have an issue with Social Security, they should contact my office, because we can open cases and actually help solve those problems. And you don't hear enough about casework and constituent services in the media. So I appreciate Look TV's focus on how we actually serve voters and constituents in this district when it comes to being a liaison to the federal government.
Well, you know what, Elise, we work a lot with veterans organizations, and you realize what the struggles they face. You know, they come back, and I think the operative word in this conversation is bureaucracy. You know, your office is just able to help those people that have Social Security issues, and not just to focus on those two, but those two really rise to the surface.
Yes.
Veterans issues and issues related to aging and Social Security issues, right? And your office just jumps right in and tries to recover some of the funds that are due to the district or to these individuals and max out what their benefits are, right?
What they're owed. And,
Yes,
and
right,
what's
sure.
interesting, since my first week in office, the number one, because I get a report every single week of cases that are opened up, VA cases are the majority of our casework in this district. So that helps also educate me as to how we can reform the VA. We passed the VA Accountability Act, bipartisan legislation to fix some of the backlog that we've been seeing in the VA. I've introduced a number of bills focused on military families that come from ideas from constituents who are struggling working through the VA. So it's a great way to educate policymakers as to what changes need to be made to modernize our federal agencies.
You know, one of the things that I spotted in reading through the work that you're doing down in Washington, and I think I want to talk about a bunch of topics here, but thinking about the families and thinking about the people that serve, how they reacclimate themselves to society. You've been involved in pieces of legislation to try to ease the burden on the families when people are serving overseas, and also helping them get back into society, right?
Absolutely. So I've introduced legislation that supports our military caregivers. There's a program within the VA that provides financial support if you have a spouse or let's say an adult child who's serving as the primary caregiver for a wounded veteran. And there has been a backlog for that program. That was an idea that came from a constituent up in the northwestern part of this district. And I've been able to translate that into legislation. It passed in my first term in the House. We're looking to pass it again, and hopefully the Senate will pass it and it can be signed into law. Another issue to support military families, you have to remember that spouses serve too.
That's right.
When you have one spouse who's deployed, oftentimes that other spouse, in addition to raising kids, they're also working. So legislation I've introduced allows them to address licensing. So let's say you're a teacher and you have to transfer to a different state because your spouse serves in the military.
Right, sure.
Making sure that that certification is actually eligible and you don't have to pay to be recertified. So our bill would provide up to $500 that would go towards relicensing and make it a national, more flexible at a national level. Some states pursue this at the state level, but we really need to streamline it at the national level.
You know, and as much of the phrase bipartisanship, if you've been following politics for as long as I have, you kind of shake your head when that happens. But everything that you've just talked about couldn't really succeed without bipartisan support, right?
Right.
And, maybe it cuts through the clutter or the divisiveness or whatever, because I would imagine that regardless of what side of the aisle you're on, these are issues that everybody wants to contribute to, right?
Yes.
Wouldn't that be true?
And all the bills that I've mentioned today have gotten bipartisan support. So I have bipartisan co-sponsors on the caregivers bill, on the military spouses legislation I've introduced, and we're hopeful that they will pass in the full House. Again, my caregivers bill didn't have a single no vote. So in today's political climate where you and I both pay close attention to the news, Jesse, there's so much discussion about the partisanship, but there also are these opportunities to fix broken systems to help families in districts across the country that both Democrats and Republicans are working together on.
Well, you know what? I think you and I would agree, too, that is why we have a government.
Yes.
Right, duh.
To get things done.
To get things done. Well, this might sound strange, but it is actually true. You know what, Elise? In part 2 of the interview, I want to talk about education. I'd like to talk about the environment and touch on national defense, okay?
Great.
So we'll do that. To see this interview again, part 1, you can go to our website, looktvonline.com.